what is this phenomenon where people don't want to work? What is this change that nature is causing inside of us that we don't want to do what we were doing before? That something inside of us is changing that says, no, before, could you imagine a few hundred years ago, a person's like, I don't want to work. It's like, okay, well, guess you're not going to eat. So good luck with that. And, and then a person sits at home for a few days and he's hungry or his family's hungry. And then he goes out and he works. Today, it's not like that.
Yeah, I think COVID is, as we've been saying, by the way, and as Kabbalist Dr. Michael Laitman has been saying repeatedly, it hasn't just, changed us in the sense that we have to wear masks, and we have to keep away from each other, and we have to get vaccinated, perhaps. Depends where you are and what you're thinking about vaccines, but right? But that isn't the change that has happened. What really was happening is that our desire has received a certain kind of change its course a little bit, change its direction a little bit. The fact that we suddenly saw that we could spend more time with ourselves, with our children, with our families, that we actually don't have to be in the constant rat race of work that produces so much stress and tension and sickness. And we kind of got out of our cocoon a little bit. We got our desire, human desire, has slightly evolved. We're beginning to identify that we are, in some sense, in a mode that is similar to slavery, because we're starting to see that maybe we don't have to. Maybe we don't have to work as much. Maybe we don't have to work as hard. Maybe the whole concept of work needs to receive an upgrade. People are starting to feel, I think, more or less consciously, they're starting to feel that it doesn't make sense that we spend 80% of our time doing something that we don't necessarily want to do. Perhaps we're even miserable doing that, the worst case scenario. But at the very least, it's not fulfilling us. And we got to ask ourselves, maybe there's something better we can do. Maybe there's a different arrangement we can make also in terms of providing for our necessities, in terms of providing for what we need. And especially in a highly technological world like today, where you can easily feed, clothe, and house all the people of the world, then maybe what's holding us back is some belief that has to do with an old world, that we are gradually now realizing through COVID, through this natural process, that we can actually come out of. There's some stories about how people who lived through slavery in the past didn't know they were slaves until some point, and there was a certain awakening. And I think that's one thing that's happening. Because look, at the very simple, kind of economic outlook on the matter, there's a few people that are, harvesting most of the fruit. There's a few people that are collecting a lot of money, a lot of benefits from the fact that a lot of people are continuing, are working, and therefore they make this cycle of consumption, production, etc. just keep going and going and going and going and going. And for a few people at the top, it's very beneficial, but for the most, it's not. The way we live in the last 100 years, pretty much 100 years, let's say from the 1920 from 20s to today, to 2020. More or less, until COVID, right? That 100 years. We have never, ever lived like that. The concept of work was never so intertwined with our identities. And that's, I think, is another thing that we're beginning to realize thanks to COVID. And I think it plays a role in the fact that people don't want to necessarily go back, because we've created social conventions, social conceptions that what you do at work is what you are. It's who you are. It's what you're worth, right? Our identities have become glued to what we do at work. Now, this is something that, again, definitely serves those who, benefit more from this whole workforce idea. But it doesn't necessarily does justice to the individual human being. And it's not, it's again, it's a whole new thing that didn't exist even just hundreds of years ago. People are, this idea of connecting our identity with our work is fairly new, and it is not necessarily making us happy. And I think people are beginning to see that thanks to COVID.